Edson Álvarez is almost a West Ham United player, but how much do you know about him? If the answer is not much, don't worry about it. We've got that covered. I'm joined by Michael, who you've seen last season as he came on to preview the Alkmaar game with me. Michael, how is oneself?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I think I bigged up ours a little bit, but good team, good club. Shame about that. Well done, though. Congratulations.
Anyway, thank you very much. Michael has decided to reveal he's a Villa fan, but we'll let him off for that one. We're here to discuss Álvarez. Right then, Edson Álvarez. Let's start with his strengths, shall we? What's the best things about this player?
Strong defensive midfielder, can play at centre back. Strong, good in the air, good tackler. I'd say in a nutshell, that's him. He's done really well with Mexico, 6-9 caps, and he's 25 years old. Like that's really good amount of caps already. He's a strong force for the national team, but at Ajax he's done really well when it comes to the big games, the Champions League games, where he can flex his strength a bit more, show his sort of value when he's playing midfield. Because when you're with Ajax, you've got to be really good on the ball, and actually, occasionally maybe he hasn't quite fit into that so much. But that's why I think the Premier League might just be for him.
I was just going to ask you that actually later on. Do you think he will suit the Premier League?
Yeah, I do, because of that physical aspect. That's something you don't find in many Eredivisie players, but he really does have. And Ajax obviously liked him at the time, bringing him from Mexico, because of that ability to be important, breaking up play in the bigger games, to take them a bit further when it came to European football. He did that actually. But I suppose there were times when they were dominating games at home in the Eredivisie, and you're thinking, do you really need Álvarez playing midfield? Because you're just going to have lots of the ball. But actually, when it came to those bigger games, yeah, he was vital. And put him at centre-back as well was of good value to Ajax when they were missing a centre-back or two. Because that versatility is also going to be important in the Premier League, I think.
So this might be a bit of a weird question then, but do you think it would suit Álvarez actually? You strongly linked with Chelsea at one point, but will it suit him joining a side like West Ham where we won't see as much possession as the other sides, and he'll have more defensive duties to do than compared to Chelsea, where he'd probably have a little bit more emphasis on what he can do in possession, and you'd see what happened to Ajax all over again, really, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what appeals to him, that he's going to a club that's playing in Europe, in the Premier League. That's something he's been seeking for a while. I suppose you could say that move to Chelsea indicated that he set his heights higher at the Premier League, but actually in the end it wouldn't have worked out with Chelsea, would it? Mid-table. But I'm pleased that he's making this move finally. 4 years with Ajax. I think he's ready to move on for sure. And yeah, with West Ham, he can have that impact, Carney, where he can show his worth from a defensive side, because even though he's a midfielder, this is where you're going to see the best out of him.
When you speak about how he breaks up play, are you referring to tackling or like reading play and then interceptions, or both?
Or yeah, both. All of that. Also really useful when it comes to playing in the air. So he's been valuable for Ajax when heading away crosses, set pieces, because the centre-backs haven't always been like the tallest or the most physical, but actually that's where he came in real good handy, because he's really tall, physically dominant. I think that when it came to midfield battles, he was really good. He is a little on the slower side, I guess you could say, looking at that sort of side of it, but he does read the play well. And he often dropped into, Ajax don't play with the back five at all, but when it came down to it, he would drop really deep from midfield, the fullbacks push up high, and he was using that kind of role as well.
Excellent. Now, while you've got me really excited, now you're going to sort of probably just curb that excitement a little bit. What's his weaknesses?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this guy is mid-20s and he hasn't moved to top Premier League. He's not with Man City, for example. So what is it that exactly is holding back? To be honest, it's probably that on the ball ability, because you're not going to see him play Man City where they're bouncing the ball around all the time. And actually, yeah, that's not really for him. But with Ajax, like I said, he upscaled what they could achieve in Europe, because he was good off the ball, good defensively, good at breaking the play. And I do really like him. I think this move has come a little bit I think he was held back from a transfer last year. Ajax didn't want to lose him. To be honest, they could really do with keeping him again, but this club is selling at the minute, all their best assets. I think the transfer fee is also a little bit inflated for him because of perhaps because of his age, and also, at times with Ajax, he wasn't always needed in games, but when he was at centre-back, he showed his worth a little more because in midfield, he, like I said, a bit of a wasted position. You want someone who can play the ball a lot more with Ajax. But Ajax fans love him. They've enjoyed having him for sure. And whilst there were times they complained a little bit about having him, actually they had their value. And I think you're paying the Ajax tax here by paying so much. I think if you come from PSV finals, you'd be paying half of that. But it's with his national team as well. He's obviously shown that he's a very good player. And I don't think you're getting a bad player at all. I do think West Ham fans may be aware about Calvin Bassey going to Fulham, another player that didn't really suit Ajax. I think Bassey will do well at Fulham, but I think Álvarez will do even better at West Ham. To be honest, I know you will speak about this better and your fans know better, but I think the situation with your club at the moment going into the season might have a bigger impact on how you're going to perform. I don't know how Álvarez is going to settle into that, to sort of help that situation. But yes, if the club's going well, I think he'll be an important player. He will help you defensively, absolutely will. His versatility will come in handy. I think he will probably play defensive midfield for you, but I could easily see him playing defense as well. He has some games at fullback, people may be aware, but yeah, he'll play in the middle.
When you speak about how he's in possession, that's his weakness, what do you mean by that? Do you mean that he's just not very good at it? Was he just not very creative at all? Was he restricted at Ajax in the sense that there's better players to do that, so give the ball to them kind of thing? What do you mean specifically by him being poor?
Yeah, there are more creative players in midfield for Ajax. They've been treated for like Frenkie de Jong, who would play deepest in midfield, so someone who would move on the ball, dribbling it, passing it. But Álvarez doesn't move the ball forwards. He will just play that very simple pass to the side. And in some ways that can be useful, right? If that's a player you want to pick up, then fine. But he doesn't progress the play particularly. He won't, like I said, make dribbles. He won't make these lung-busted runs into the box, despite how tall he is. I don't see him doing that at all for you. You have got him for his defensive strengths.
Interesting, because statistically, I've seen a bit of him, but not much, probably 10, 15 times I've seen him play, mainly Champions League football. But statistically, when you're looking at his numbers, he's very impressive in some areas. Now, I disregard a lot of them, for example, progressive passes, because I think, well, of course they're going to be really high. He plays for Ajax. He's always going to be moving the ball forward. But one thing that was quite high that I perhaps wasn't expecting was the number of carries he did. So essentially dribbles, which would indicate that he does move with the ball up the pitch. Is that a fair? This is where sometimes I think the eye test is greater than statistics. Mm. I'm now almost asking you for context for that statistic. Is it because he plays for Ajax so he can dribble, or is he good at it?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I'm really pleased you brought that up because you can get things from stats, can't you? And almost think something about a player. He won't start taking on like these great runs forward where he'll take on 3 or 4 players and then pass the ball on. Yes, he's quite skillful, but he's not necessarily technical nor quick. So I don't think you're going to see these kinds of things happening. But yeah, with Ajax, you can hold the ball and you can walk forward with it. No one's necessarily going to press you because he's going to make that pass. So that perhaps could be why. But yeah, the eye test. I mean, I've watched the guy for a few years and I do really like him. But these assets, these strengths are definitely good to pick up for West Ham. But he's not going to be the complete midfielder where he will have his attacking strengths as well.
One big area of concern is his lack of discipline, or what perceives to be a lack of discipline, his high card count. Is that going to be an issue for West Ham, or is that reflective of the way Ajax play?
Well, Ajax, especially under Edson Álvarez, would play quite... I used to call it suicidal football, where they'd push both fullbacks forward and then they'd have only 2 players back, let's say. So you could see how him breaking at the play would be important within that, especially with Ten Hag. That even he was saying, like, I like to play that kind of football, Ten Hag. And he said, well, maybe we shouldn't have 2 players back, maybe we should have 3 at least. Because that would therefore lead to these concentrations where you'd have to just stop the play. And again, another use of having Álvarez that he can do that. He can be quite clever with it. I think Ajax are quite good at that, winning the right kinds of fouls. But yes, the disciplinary record just because of that.
Yeah, that's good then. I was hoping you were going to suggest it was tactical fouls more than studs up, slide tackles kind of thing. But he's quite aggressive. I know he's quite aggressive as well, so that contributes to it a little
passionate.
bit. Now I was good. Is there any leadership there though? Because at the minute, West Ham don't have a captain. We don't have one. We don't know who the captain is, despite the Premier League starting on Saturday. We don't know who will be wearing the armband. Probably Thomas Souček, but again, that doesn't necessarily mean he will be the captain going forward. So there's a feeling that we're going to purchase one in the transfer window. Might explain why we're going to have to Harry Maguire. But naturally, with every player we do sign, we're sort of looking at them thinking, could that be the captain? Does Alvarez carry any leadership qualities? Is he the captain at Ajax or anything?
No, I mean, he's got this typical hardworking, passionate. He's done well with Mexico, of course. But for me, I think with Ajax, they were looking for a new captain this summer, and they've ended up turning to Steven Bergwijn, who didn't do particularly well at Spurs, which was a strange choice because there are a couple of the players I think would have stood out there. And keeping Alvarez and handing him that kind of leadership role might have persuaded him to stay. They didn't turn to him. The new manager didn't really list him as someone who would be that captain. But he's one of the strengths of an Ajax team that's done well over the past few years. So he has the experience, he has passion. But yeah, I don't think he's signed to be your captain, unfortunately. Could be wrong.
Last question then. Well, second last question. Obviously, he's been brought in essentially as Declan Rice's replacement. Would you suggest that this is a good replacement for Declan Rice?
See, I did think when Declan Rice moved on and I heard the rumours of Alvarez to begin with, I thought, this is how West Ham have got to go around it. They have to replace him in a different way. So they have to get players that will make the team really good in a different way. He won't replace half of what Rice can do in terms of going forward, but defensively, you could say that he's more disciplined in that regard, and that is what he will do. That is his job, and he will stick to that and could improve perhaps that area of what you do. But you will need other players around that to change what Rice gave you in midfield. You've introduced the fact that I'm already a Villa fan. Losing Jack Grealish was a big loss to Villa, and we had to replace him with 3 players to try and take the club in a different direction. I think he will do some things better, but it will be in one regard, and that is defensively.
I was going to ask you that very specific question, actually, off the back of the answer. Is, in your opinion, Edson Álvarez better defensively than Declan Rice?
Oh, that could be used for quotes and stuff. Yeah, he's classy. I like him. I think seeing him in the Premier League will be really good. That's the test, isn't it? Will he do it in the Premier League rather than just with Ajax? However, when I always speak about players that leave Ajax and have done well, I do try and point towards the Champions League as an indication of how they can perform the highest level. Alvarez is another player where I can do that, and also with his national team where he's been successful. The guy's done well in other stages than just the Eredivisie. So, take it as you've got a very good player. Will he want a move perhaps higher up the Premier League table than West Ham in the future? Yes. I think he'll get it? I don't think so. I think if West Ham do well in the Premier League, I think this is where he'll be happy to be. This is kind of a good level for him. He didn't leave Ajax before now because bigger clubs didn't come in with persuasive enough. We need you. We think you'll upscale our team. But I think he'll do that for West Ham. And this is a nice move for him. I think him moving to London as well. Getting the league aspect. Europa League may well have been a draw too. This is a good match. But yes, he won't replace Rice. Unfortunately, Rice is too good, too classy. But Alvarez does have some aspects that I think you'll really enjoy.
Right, Michael, last question. Time for your crystal ball. Will he be a success at West Ham?
Yes.
Good man. That's what I wanted to hear, Michael. Michael, thank you very much for joining me. Massively appreciate it. Best of luck for the season with Aston Villa. And I'll know who I'm coming to. West Ham get drawn against the Dutch side in the Europa League anyway.
Yeah, it's a football down here.
Thank you. If you guys at home have enjoyed this, please do drop a like on the video by clicking the thumbs up button. Subscribe to you around here. You want to hear more from Michael over on Football Orange. The link to his podcast and channel is in the description below and will be on the end slate as well. But for myself, I'll catch you in a bit.